Hi, Abby. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. To begin with, if you want to tell the listeners who you are and what do you bring to the world?
Sure. So, my name is Abby Gallo, and I own Terrain Bookkeeping. We're a boutique bookkeeping firm that works primarily with consultants and with creative and marketing agencies. And we help them gain clarity on their business finances so that they can make important decisions for their businesses.
Awesome. Finances can be very scary to talk about.
Yes.
So, if we're not really on top of our finances in our business, where do we start with getting organized with them?
Yeah, so the first thing I would recommend is really to have some sort of software that you use for bookkeeping. So I, with all my clients, work with QuickBooks Online. That's one of them. There's Zero is another one. Some people use Wave, Sage. There's a whole FreshBooks. There's a whole bunch of them out there. But really getting everything into an online software will help you because you can automate it in a lot of ways. You can connect it to your bank, and really things will start to populate in there. You still have to go in and do a lot of things, set it up the right way. I would recommend, if you don't know what you're doing, to either take a class or have somebody help you set it up so that at least you're not so at least you're starting out on the right foot, right? Because otherwise it can get a little messy. A lot of these softwares, they say that they're very user friendly, and they are to an extent, but there's also a large learning curve to a lot of them. So that's where I would start. And also just making sure that you're keeping track of your expenses and keeping your receipts, if not physically, then electronically, and just making sure that you're separating your business from your personal. Those are like the
Yes,
big
definitely.
things, I would
Definitely
say.
have separate bank accounts so that you can keep them all
Yes,
organized.
yeah. I know a lot of people don't realize that, especially if they're a solopreneur, they have a sole proprietorship or they're the only person in their LLC. They don't necessarily think, because for tax purposes, it is, you can see how it would all be from, it's all treated as you as an individual oftentimes, but it can get messy. And actually, if you are an LLC, having a separate bank account and keeping your finances totally separate helps protect you from a liability. It's called piercing the corporate veil. If you mingle the two together, and can leave you open to lawsuits and people going after your personal funds. So definitely something you want to
Yes,
avoid.
definitely. Yes. So I have to admit, I still use Google spreadsheets to do all of my
Yep. As long as
finances.
you're doing it, that's
Yes.
okay too.
I know you mentioned a bunch of programs, but what would
Mhm.
you recommend for like a beginner who is not very equipped with all the technology but wants to keep better track?
Yeah, Google Sheets is a good thing to use. Just start with breaking out your income, what you have for your sales each month. And then, below that, your expenses and what you each month have. And then, the one-off things that you have, you keeping track of those. If you can, I know there are templates online where you can have places to input all of that in the right spots for your taxes. So if you're going to do it manually, there are some templates that you can set up. But yeah, definitely keeping your income separate, and then any expenses that you have, making sure that you track those. And then from there, if you have the income, subtract your expenses, you get your
Yes.
profit, or net income, as we call it. So that's the very basic.
Okay, good. I'm keeping it simple right now until I get
Yeah,
more advanced.
get it.
Yes. If we are, oh, I think we talked about that. Sorry. We talked about separate bank accounts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we hit on that already. It's very
Yes.
important. So
Yes.
hammer that home.
So, how does keeping track of our finances actually help our business in the future?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people look at bookkeeping as a compliance, just doing it for
Mhm.
tax purposes. And a lot of people use it that way, or they're just getting everything together last minute to send over to their accountant so their taxes can be filed, right?
Mm.
But they're missing a big opportunity to really use their information to learn about their business and to motivate them and to make better decisions. So you can't manage what you don't measure, right? If you're not keyed into what you're making and what you're spending, then you don't know how you're doing. You don't know how much you can pay yourself. You may not be paying yourself, or at least not consistently. So there's all sorts of opportunities you can have from just looking at the numbers. And I had a client who started working with me. She didn't know if she was even making a profit. It was a labor of love for her, and she called it her not-for-profit business, but she was making a profit. We looked at it. She was not a lot, but as she started seeing her numbers, and one of the things I do with my clients is I meet with them on a monthly basis or quarterly basis to go over their finances. So I don't just send them the reports and say, here, good luck. We sit down, we go over it and review it, and I make sure they understand it. And also we talk about how things could be improved, what could they change going forward. And one of the things that we did, she wanted to start doing some budgeting. So that we created a budget for the year. And after we started doing that, in a 3-year span, her profit increased 138%. By measuring that and tracking against it regularly, she was able to check in and say, okay, this part of my business is doing well. This part's not so great, so maybe I should stop doing this. Really to see what was working and what wasn't working and make changes so that she could have a better year the next year or the next quarter even. Sometimes we wait too long and we do it at the end of the year and they're like, oh, that's good. Good to know. If you do it as you go, you have the opportunity to make changes almost in real time. So I think that's one opportunity, there are a lot of opportunities really that are left on the table if you're not looking at all that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was looking at my expenses at the end of the year, of course, because I waited and I was paying for a program that I hadn't used in 6 months. I'm like, why am I paying for this?
Yes, that is one thing I always check with my clients on is the biggest categories, the software subscriptions.
Yes.
They will get you because you sign up and they often don't send you a receipt and they just keep charging you. And if you're not looking at it, it can add up over the course of a year or several years. So that's one thing I like to do is like a quarterly software subscription audit. What are you still using and what can we get rid of here that you don't really need anymore?
Yes, that's a good thing to put into your quarterly planning is look at your finances. What can you get rid of?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
And the other thing I would say that a lot of people don't do, and if you are doing it yourself and you have software, or even if you're using a Google Sheet, is to reconcile what you have in your software or your sheet with what's in your bank account, to make sure that you're not missing anything, to make sure that it matches so that you know that it's accurate. Because a lot of times they're like, oh, I have QuickBooks and it's in there, it's connected to my bank feed, I categorize it, but they don't know if it's actually accurate because they're not reconciling. They don't know. A lot of people don't know what reconciliation is, and that's fair. I at one point didn't either. It's something that not a lot of people talk about. So it's just really making sure that what you have in your software matches what happened in your bank account. Very important.
Yes, we don't always get receipts or write down the receipts when we get them.
Right, yeah. Yeah, if you're doing it manually, especially, you can miss a lot of stuff. It's important.
Yes. So when do we know that it's time to actually hire a bookkeeper?
I think, like I said, there's several different stages that you can seek a bookkeeper's help. And one is as you're starting out to get set up and potentially with training or help to make sure everything's in the right order and going to the right places. But I would say it's either, it can be a monetary threshold, or it can just be when you feel like your time is better spent doing something else, right? It's as the business owner, your zone of genius is probably not in doing the books yourself, right? Most business owners could do the books themselves. A lot of them do, and they're totally fine at it. But is it the best use of your time? Could you be using that time to bring in new clients and make more money, or work with your team, or something else that's a little bit more fruitful? Or it's that they're just tired of doing it themselves, or they're not doing it themselves. And even if they are doing it themselves, are they sure that it's done the right way? Do you want to be spending the time doing it and learning how to do it? So with a bookkeeper, it's plug and play, basically. They're ready to go. We've already got the base knowledge on how to do it all. It's just a matter of turning over the reins and letting us take that over with your input and insight and all of that. Obviously, it's not totally a hands-off experience because we still do need information from you on what certain expenses are for and all of that. But I would say for anyone who's just realizing my time is better used somewhere else, definitely once you get to a higher revenue level too, it makes it easier to bring on a bookkeeper. 80 to 100,000 in annual revenue. That's definitely a time where you want to say, okay, I think it's time now. I need to hand this off to somebody else. So That would be my recommendation or what I would look for if I were a business owner. It's
Yeah.
I heard from a lot of people that it's one of the first things that they see as being able to outsource. Along with social media, bookkeeping seems to be one of those things that a lot of people think, okay, this could be something I could parcel off to somebody else and I could spend my time doing something else for the business
Yes.
or
Stay in
for
our zone
myself.
of genius. Yes.
Yeah.
Give the
Or
other
even just
person.
spending more time with family
Mm,
than spending the weekend before taxes are due, crunching
yes.
all of it together.
Yes. I think some people's hesitation to hiring a bookkeeper might be they're embarrassed by the look of their finances.
I've heard that before, which is so funny to me. People come to us in all sorts of disarray, and very few are well organized, I will say. And there's no judgment here. I told someone else this, I was like, it's if you go to the doctor, like, we're used to seeing it. It's not like your story is your individual books are horrifying or going to be an outlier. It's actually really common that a lot of people don't know how their books, what shape their books are in, or how to manage the software, and they've signed up for it and they're like, oh no, now what do I do? So it's very common, I would say. So do not be afraid. We are here to help. That's why all the bookkeepers I talk to, we want to help business owners gain clarity around their finances. We want them to be successful because we think that small businesses are so important to our country, to the local economy, all of it, and just to us as communities and individuals. Small businesses are the best, so we have to help support them, and that's why we want to help business owners make sure that they know how their finances are stacking up.
Yes, it would give them peace of mind so they can actually
Yeah,
enjoy working on their business instead of
exactly.
stressing
Yeah,
out over
yeah.
all
We
of it.
we want to relieve the burden.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for being on today. This was all very
Yeah,
helpful. And I
thank
know
you.
bookkeeping is probably going to be something I outsource soon.
I would recommend
Yes.
it.
Can you tell all the listeners how they can connect with you?
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is terrainbookkeeping.com, or Instagram is another place at Terrain Bookkeeping. And those are probably the best. I'm also on LinkedIn, Abby Gallo. Look me up there too.
I will make sure all those are in the show notes. So,
Awesome.
yes, thank you
Thank you
again
so
for
much for
being on.
having me.
Yes, of course. Thank you.